There was definitely a lot of love and a lot of action this episode, but what really got me was seeing Nolan at the end of the episode. Let's talk about it. While seeing Nolan definitely caught me off guard, there's a few other things I want to mention and talk about as well. Not only are we going to cover a little bit of Alan's past, but we're also going to talk about Debbie and her interaction with the support group guy. But I really want to start off with Alan and I guess the backstory of the Unopans. Because what kind of interested me with them is they kind of remind me of Saiyans just a little bit. And I say just a little bit because if anything, Saiyans are more similar to Viltrumites than Unopans. Especially since the Saiyans from Dragon Ball Z, they were this warrior race and they were kind of seen as an aggressive race and they were supposed to be the strongest in the universe. Ironically though, they fell to someone else. They fell to Frieza. So the only thing that Saiyans have in common with the Unopans is that they both had their planet destroyed and taken over. Now what I will say is I do like how the Unopans, they stood up and they rose against the Viltrumites despite knowing they didn't really have a chance. I mean, they at least bare minimum tried. Back in Z, they just kind of showed Bardock taking on Frieza, taking on a threat by himself, instead of the Saiyans as a whole trying to rise up against Frieza. And seeing the Unopans fight to the very end, that was something that I liked a lot. And that was something that also made me like Alan a lot more too. Overall, I'm just super impressed that they survived the Viltrumite invasion. They were able to bounce back and repopulate and come up with countermeasures. And speaking of survival, I'm wondering if Alan is going to survive the vicious attack he took on from 3 Viltrumites. It's kind of messed up how they made me get slightly more attached to him, and now I don't even know if he's going to make it in the next episode. And I will say, I don't trust Thaedus. Now at first, I didn't feel one way or the other towards Thaedus because he seemed to be on board, he seemed very supportive, and he seemed to back up Alan whenever he needed it. But it's not a coincidence that Alan is attacked by 3 Viltrumite right after his conversation with Thaedus about a mole, and it's also not a coincidence that Thaedus tried to off Alan. It has me wondering if Thaedus is aware of Mark's existence and doesn't want Mark to be weaponized against the Viltrumites. Next, we gotta talk about Debbie because Debbie is having such a hard time and that makes me feel real bad for her because we see everyone else getting it in. We see Monster Girl getting it in, Mark getting it in, and we see Alan getting in cheeks, but Debbie's over here, she's crying, she's still grieving, and that just makes me feel really bad for her. Like, especially when everyone else's relationships are going so well, and Debbie is still grieving over hers every single day. And it doesn't help that not only does she have to deal with the mess that Omni-Man left behind, but Mark is going off to college, so she probably feels alone, so she tries this support group, only to be turned away there as well.
You shouldn't come back to the group. Wouldn't be a safe space with you there.
Now, I'm a little ashamed I didn't catch on to this at first, but now it makes sense why Debbie was advised to not share her last name. Turns out, this guy there named Theo, his wife was Green Ghost, and she was brutally offed by Omni-Man. And while I don't agree with how he's handling his anger, I do understand that he is angry and that he is grieving, just like Debbie. But I'm really hoping he'll reach back out to Debbie maybe later on and won't be too harsh with her. I mean, Debbie is already going through a lot as is, but it is interesting to see her face this scrutiny and face this challenge because her having to face the spouses of the superheroes that Omni-Man offed is something I didn't even consider being a problem. And speaking of problems, we gotta talk about Mark's interaction with Nolan. Now, I'm not gonna lie, at first I was on board with Mark helping a little bug alien because he seemed to really need Mark's help and wanted Mark's help. And then William kind of pushed Mark to help the little bug alien and was like, hey, this is what happened last time you didn't help someone. You should go help. So Mark went to go do it. But I kind of got suspicious when the bug alien was asking for help for the planet, but when they got there, the planet was fine. We had just seen Alan get jumped by 3 Viltrumites, so I really didn't know what was in store for Mark here. But like I said earlier, it completely caught me off guard that it was Nolan, Omni-Man, welcoming him to this planet. But I gotta say, I'm kind of wondering a few things about Omni-Man, and I'm wondering if I was wrong about him. At the end of season 1, I thought of Omni-Man as nothing more than a cruel monster. But looking back, I didn't realize there were tears in his eyes as he was fleeing or leaving Earth. And that goes to show me that maybe Omni-Man has a lot more heart, or a little bit more of a heart, than I initially thought. Not only that, why isn't he surrounded by other Viltrumites? Is it because he abandoned his mission? Or he didn't complete things and get things done in the way they were supposed to be? And I also can't help but wonder, What if Mark and Nolan are the same, meaning that they both aren't like their counterparts in other dimensions or multiverses? I mean, maybe that would probably be too cliche or too predictable, but it's just something that's kind of been on my mind. And even if Omni-Man does feel some type of way about what he did, I don't think Mark is just gonna let that slide. Like, Mark is still gonna be angry, lives were lost, lives were ruined. Mark and Omni-Man, they might fight for a little bit. Like, that's what I'm predicting. And then maybe after that, maybe after Mark is able to blow off some steam and get some of his emotions under control, we'll be able to get some answers and see what's going on, because I wasn't expecting them to meet each other or encounter each other this early on. But anyway, I can't wait to see what happens next episode. Y'all be sure to let me know what y'all think about this episode. Do y'all have any predictions or theories? If you do, be sure to let me know down below in the comments. As always, thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you for the likes, subscriptions, and support. I really do appreciate it a bunch. Without you guys, there would be no SierraNovaa. But until next time, SierraNovaa is out.